jQuery, Bootstrap, and other JavaScript frameworks. In this section, we're going to talk about what is jQuery and Bootstrap, what are the pros and cons of using frameworks in general, as well as some of the other frameworks that are out there. We're going to dive into learning more about jQuery and how to use it. Then we're going to talk about using Bootstrap for visuals along with jQuery. Why jQuery and Bootstrap? To best answer this question, we must first answer what is jQuery and what is Bootstrap. So jQuery is a JavaScript framework. And ultimately what that is it's a collection of libraries and code and pre-made functions that are created to add a layer on top of JavaScript and make it easier to code, easier to understand, easier to extend, ultimately making it easier to use. So think of it as like a user interface on top of, a piece of hardware. So I have here the jQuery website, and I'm not going to walk through the entire website. You can do that on your own, but it's just at jQuery.com. jQuery really has evolved throughout the years. Its current version is 3.3.1. The 1.x and the 2.x branches, so like 1.10, 1.13, and the two dot branches are all still heavily used, and they're still very good. So if you're taking on a job that is using jQuery already and they've been in development for many years, they might still be on jQuery 1.x or 2.x. The framework itself is not extremely different, so you should be able to pick up on the older versions. But it's just important to know that there are different versions, and some of them have different functions that exist or don't exist in other ones. It is a lightweight footprint. As it said, it's only 30 kilobytes, minified and gzipped. So it is not a huge footprint. The user is not expected to download a 1 megabyte set of files. It is CSS3 compliant. And one of the great things and the reasons why I personally started using jQuery early on is that it's cross-browser. So one of the biggest frustrations with JavaScript is, especially many years ago, and I'm talking 10, 15 years ago, browsers were all extremely different in the way they handled JavaScript. So some functions worked differently in one browser than another. Some browsers would only work with certain functions, and then another browser might have a different set of functions. And even as recently as like 5 years ago, there are still just little inconsistencies here and there. And at this point, the inconsistencies are a lot less, but a lot of them, especially around pixel orientation and, exactitudes and just little quirks here and there. The fact that jQuery, you code it once and it works on all browsers really is a huge time saver, and it is pretty wonderful. Additionally, jQuery has 4 other really great offshoots. So there's jQuery UI, and jQuery UI is a framework that sits on top of the jQuery framework for creating interactive forms. You have jQuery Mobile, which is very much around building a mobile interface. So it has a lot of really neat features for things that you would really only want on a mobile. And not that you couldn't design these things yourself using just jQuery, but some really talented industry experts have gotten together and collaborated and created jQuery Mobile, which allows you to do that. You have QUnit, which is a JS unit testing. Unit testing is a way for yourself to automate the testing of the code you write. So what you can do is you can test and say, I want, every time I make a save or every time I think I'm done with my code, I want to test it. And the way I'm going to test that is I'm going to create a transaction object, run it through these sets of functions, and I expect to have, and then it will tell you this passed, this failed, things like that. So unit testing really is important, especially if you're getting into large scale apps. And what's great is it's automated. So whenever you make one little change, you just run your scripts and it tells you, hey, everything's passed, everything is, or if there is an error, it tells you where. So it's got, QUnit, and it's got Sizzle, which is a CSS selector engine, and I have not played much with it, so I can't really comment too much. So that is what jQuery is. So it's JavaScript, but it's done so, in a little bit more, I'm going to say, user-friendly way. And another great thing is they have amazing documentation. So here they have a list of every one of their functions. It tells you all the things that are related to it. Let's make that bigger. So they have all of their functions, and you can click on the function and it gives you even more information. So in this case, .append, it tells you it can take in content, it can take in a comma-separated list of content, and you can also append a function. and it gives code examples on how you can use it. So, I mean, really, this is a beautiful interactive guide that is completely free and available. So this is another reason why jQuery is wonderful, is if you're ever unsure, how do I do something or how does something work? All you have to do is look it up. And as you can see, there is a huge, giant list of predefined functions and things. Now, a lot of these things exist in JavaScript. So it's not like inArray and isArray. Like all of these are just utility functions. But the fact that they are wrapped up in a neat little package and someone else has optimized them, it really makes it valuable. So then we get into what is Bootstrap. So Bootstrap is an HTML and CSS framework that utilizes jQuery and a few jQuery plugins to allow you to quickly and easily develop websites. And there are examples, there's themes, and there's also good documentation. And so right here you can see there's a whole bunch of templates and themes. In a previous video on HTML, I used the pricing template. But all of this, the CSS is predefined for you, the interactions are predefined for you. Everything is predefined, all you have to do is kind of fill in the content. So that is Bootstrap, and very similar to jQuery, it just makes things a lot quicker. In fact, I'm going to be using this as a template. So this is a checkout form. Now this is all made using just basic HTML, and all of the highlighting around the fields, all of the accents, everything, which just make a website look nice, let's be honest. This is a nice and neat looking input form. So all of this stuff is predefined, and you can always change the predefinitions using themes, and it is also free and freely available to use. So this is Bootstrap, and it is something that's pretty wonderful. I would like to note its latest version is 4.1. Just like jQuery, Bootstrap 3 and Bootstrap 2 are in heavy use. And if you do land a job that has been around, that's working on a project that is 3+ years old, you're probably going to be working on an older version. But one of the great things is you can go to version 2.3 and bam, you're on the Bootstrap 2.3 website, and you can see their get started, you can see the JavaScript. So it tells you that this is no longer supported, but they still have all the documentation, and you can still read up and see what's happening. And usually the upgrade path from like Bootstrap 2 to 3 and 3 to 4 is usually not huge. If you have a very intricate project that is very customized, then it might not be an option. But the same thing goes for jQuery. Usually upgrading from older jQuery to new jQuery usually only requires minimal refactoring.